Going on, FA Nation? Welcome to Fantasy Live DFS NBA live stream. I'm John Pemba, alongside James Grande, producing Steve Pimentel, kind of the whole group here, producing today's live stream. 4 games on Tuesday, heading into Thanksgiving holiday for all of us. James, it's a nice little appetizer, as we mentioned on the podcast this morning. Humongous 13-game slate on Wednesday, 14-game slate on Black Friday. Just huge deals. But speaking of Black Friday, I'm going to kick this off. Fantasy Lamb has a tremendous deal going on right now for Black Friday special. We will not be outdone on Black Friday deals. Our best deal ever is here. You'll get everything we do in all sports through next NFL season for less than $8 a month when you pay $100 right now. Make no new payments until 2020. We will be there for both your DFS or seasonal play with tons of analytical features like our playbooks, plus customizable tools and league sync, and the only lineup generator that integrates our team's editorial views, plus experts. The best Black Friday deal. Get it now.
Wow.
Yeah, it's huge. FantasyLive.com/Black Friday. No better deal than that. $100 you're getting. You don't pay again until 2020. You pay now $100, not again until 2020. So definitely go check that out. FantasyLive.com/Black Friday. Now that that's out of the way, James, let's break down today's 4-game slate. Hit us up with the totals. A whole lot of high-scoring games we have right now.
Yeah. Toronto Orlando actually dipped below 220, so to 219. So that's a low total for this slate. Clippers Washington currently 233. The Clippers are now 1-point favorites. We started at Washington -1. New York Portland is -7, 220.5. So finally, maybe a Knicks game that actually stays close? ? Especially we like Portland here, so hopefully that game does stay close. And Brooklyn Miami 216, only a 3.5-point spread. This matchup just happened. Miami kind of blew Brooklyn out, but we know Miami's dealing with a bunch of guys out. We already know Dragic is out. We already know Tyler Johnson's out. So this could be a different game. We know Brooklyn is probably at their best with their guards playing well. I mean, their best player, D'Angelo Russell, and Spencer Dinwiddie's been great off the bench. So and that's pretty big for Brooklyn to have Miami's 2 top guards off the floor. I mean, Dwayne Wade's back. So, those are the totals.
Dwayne Wade being back, you really can think is I'm not gonna say it threw a wrench in some of the plans that we had today, but we recorded the podcast this afternoon trying to get all the injury news behind us. Then pretty much as soon as we were done with the podcast, we get the alert that Dwayne Wade's playing, and then that Tyler Johnson is out. So let's just kick it off at point guard. Wade, I believe, is point guard, shooting guard eligible on DraftKings. Only shooting guard eligible on FanDuel, but still. What do you think of Wade tonight? How many minutes do you think he's playing? What do you think he's going to do here in this matchup against blanking on the team they're playing. Who are they playing? The Nets.
The Nets. Yeah. Yes. I mean, I really like Wade here. There's not going to be a dip in minutes because he was out for the birth of his child. So it's not like he was injured. He's been playing 20-plus minutes basically every night anyways. And now they have 2, the Heat don't really have a lot of guard depth. And all their guards, they just start. They just play 4 guards next to Whiteside. So I think Wade should project for about 24 to 26 minutes. And we could see kind of a point Wade type performance tonight. I know his assists are down this year, but I like him a lot. I really like him on DraftKings at that price tag. I think that's just far too cheap, under $5K for someone who's not really injured. Fresh legs, hopefully, so that's not something we've been able to say about Dwayne Wade in quite some time. So I like Wade a lot here.
For me, the top point guard is John Wall. Just in terms of matchup, the Clippers have been torched by point guard, especially over the last 2 games. They're not only allowing the most fantasy points in the point guard position anyways, but we just saw Trae Young had 17 assists the other night, 25 points or so, and then D'Angelo Russell had a double-double against them as well. So yeah, I think Wall's in for at least a double-double here in this matchup against the Clippers, who are on a back-to-back. He is getting sort of expensive. $9,000 on DraftKings is that price point where we teeter about whether or not there's enough value and upside. And on FanDuel, he's 9.8, which is really kind of more than we want to spend, but it's a 4-game slate. And on smaller slates, guys with Wall's consistent sort of ceiling of 45-ish to 50 fantasy points, I'm definitely okay with playing.
Yeah, and I think we're just kind of looking for floors on 4-game slates, especially more than we're looking for like 70-point upside, especially. You can't. Yeah, obviously there's guys that are going to still have the upside, but we really want the floor. I think I'm even okay with paying 9.8 for Wall, honestly. And you don't hear me say that a lot, but just because there's just a lack of, like, after Lillard and Wall, it really drops off the table. And there's not a lot of other high-priced guys at other positions. I mean, Kawhi, and then it's the field, So, I think Wall is in a really good spot. He better put up after talking all that smack earlier today. So he better come out and with some fire, showing some freaking fire. If you're gonna sound off on your own team here.
Was he talking trash about the Wizards?
Yeah. Check it after the live stream. He was not talking good upon his own team. So
interesting. You mentioned John. You mentioned if you weren't paying for John Wall, really Dame Lillard is the only other spend up spot. Well, we teeter in limbo on the Kyle Lowry news. How do you think Lillard fares tonight against the Knicks, who have actually been decent against point guards this season defensively?
It's weird that they've been decent because, and I think it primarily has to do with Frankie Smokes, because Frankie Smokes is a good defender, he's athletic. But I mean, you're getting Moutier defense here, and you're getting Trey Burke defense, both diminutive guards, both not very good defenders. So I'm not worried about it. Yeah. Yes, they have statistically been decent, but I mean, we just saw Drew Holiday torch him. I mean, there's been plenty of upside from opposing guards against the Knicks. So I like Lillard a lot. He's probably, I like him in GPPs more than I like Wall, because there's just a higher ceiling, and we just saw 40 actual points and 31 actual points in 2 of his last 3 games. So I just think there's a higher ceiling. I love Lillard in tournaments tonight. Slightly over Wall.
Yeah, that's fine. Given we know that Dragic's out and Lowry's in limbo, questionable, I feel like since he's been questionable all day, they should just sit him, right? Doesn't that sort of make sense?
They have another game tomorrow, by the way.
Yeah, right. Even then, and we're fortunate enough that on today's slate, it's 2 7 p.m. games, 2 7:30 games, so we won't really have to wait all night. If this is a West Coast game, it'd be really hard to pen who's going to play what. But I think we'll know this Lowry news definitely before lineup lock, because they're a 7 p.m. game. But that drops us all the way down to a guy like Spencer Dinwiddie, or SGA, as we like to call him, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Pretty close there. I think it was close to pronouncing his name correctly. And then Trey Burke. So in that tier of $6,000 to $5,000, where are you looking?
So I think Dinwiddie is pretty safe for all formats. He's just sees an uptick in minutes without LeVert. He's pretty safe. I think the lock of the slate becomes Fred VanVleet if we do get news that Kyle Lowry's out. I mean, we saw what he did against Chicago in just 3 quarters. He didn't even play in the 4th quarter. And he exploded. And this is kind of the production that he's been putting up production earlier in the year. We were considering him on 7, 8, 9 game slates, and he was coming off the bench. 34 fantasy points in just 29 minutes. That's the type of fantasy point per minute guy. And if Lowry sits, you can even look at DeLon Wright to a step further, because he's going to take the VanVleet role. So right. I also think Burke is interesting. He's not going to start, but Moutier is not going to play past 23 minutes. So we saw Moutier explode 2 games ago, and he didn't play more than 23 minutes. That's just what the role he has. The Knicks are going to, if they need the offensive punch, which they moved, basically, they took Enes Kanter, moved him to the starting rotation. So now Burke has all the second unit shots, all for himself. So I think he's viable, especially in tournaments. I'm not going to say cash games ever, because Trey Burke could literally play 12 minutes because the Knicks coach is a psychopath. So that rotation this is like their 7th starting lineup in like 7 games. So, I mean, you can't trust it.
No, I agree with you there, and that's something we'll hit upon once we come to centers too, because our boy Enes Kanter is in the starting lineup, but we don't know how many minutes he's actually gonna end up playing. Still haven't seen official wording yet on Kyle Lowry being ruled out. Some people in our stream are saying that they are. Again, I'm waiting for official word. I haven't seen it yet, but again, we're anticipating Lowry to be ruled out. So if that does happen, Fed VanVleet definitely in play. So if you have that news before we've gotten it, then yeah, that's kind of where we're leaning here. Any other point guards you're looking at?
DJ Augustine is like a deep dive. He's going to play like 26, 28 minutes, but it's not like a sexy play. You don't need to do it.
I agree with you. Shooting guard, over on DraftKings, obviously you can play Kawhi Leonard over there. On FanDuel, he is small forward only, so we'll sort of ignore him for now, and we'll start off Bradley Beal against the Clippers. Again, I don't think you need to pay up for Beal at $8,200. I think there's a better mid-tier price points than some guys. But what do you feel about the top here, Beal and Hardaway, top price shooting guards?
I mean, I don't hate Beal considering that this game is up to 233 total. Both teams are 7th in the league in pace, so we get a severe pace up spot for both teams. 233 total. Where the Washington Wizards get to face a Clippers team on a second night of a back-to-back. So all that's good, but Beal isn't really providing us with any peripherals. Maybe that improves with Dwight off the floor. Maybe he grabs a couple rebounds. But John Wall is just so ball dominant. The assists aren't going to be there for Beal. I don't think we need to do it. I'm looking at this next tier of D'Angelo Russell, Tim Hardaway, CJ McCollum. I think Russell's in a smash spot. Dwayne Wade isn't really doing anything defensively in the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, he's having to conserve his energy for the offensive side of the ball. So, I mean, that's an advantage. That's a spot he could take advantage of. Plus, he's been really productive lately, and we've seen some really high ceiling games for Russell. Tim Hardaway, we know the offense needs to come from somewhere for them to stay close, and it's been Hardaway 30-plus in 2 straight games, 45 DraftKings points or more. So I think Hardaway's interesting. And McCollum gets Tim Hardaway defense 116 rating. 5 out of his last 8 games, over 20 actual points. We did see a 50-point actual game out of McCollum. So, I'm not going to say there isn't a ceiling, but how often do we get that ceiling from him? So
you typically get it only if Lillard's ruled out.
Right. So I don't necessarily. I would prefer Russell and Hardaway, but I think McCollum's a viable option up here as well.
No, I agree with you. I think the one thing with McCollum is the fact that he said he sees Tim Hardaway defense, and Hardaway is one of the worst defenders at shooting guard in the league. So I think that's something that makes McCollum a little bit more appealing. Any love for Evan Fournier?
I think the price point is there, especially on DraftKings. I don't know if I want to pay it for FanDuel.
I think he goes super low owned tonight.
Yeah, because everyone's going to
pivot.
Which is, you're right, because everyone's going to either pay down for Lou Williams, who's been super consistent, or go up and get those 3 guys that we were just talking about. So, from that perspective, yeah. What do you think Evan Fournier's ceiling is? I mean, again, we do want the floor. We are looking for a floor, and he does have, a pretty solid floor.
I think he's a safe, 30 fantasy point guy with 40-plus upside.
Okay, and then at DraftKings, that gets you 5.5x, 6x. So I think you could do it. I prefer that price tag than the one over on FanDuel.
That's fair. If we're spending down, we already talked about Dwayne Wade, but Wayne Ellington's probably still very much in play. $4,200 on FanDuel. I think he's that same range over on DraftKings.
Yeah, he is 4,400.
Yeah. So again, I think I like him more on DraftKings because you get the 3-point bonus than on FanDuel. But again, I still think he's somebody in play. You mentioned Alan Crabb on the podcast. Still on Crabb?
He's a guy he has to make his shots to do anything. So, I mean, he's only 3,800, so we're not even looking for 20 from him. So, I mean, if we got the same game that we got from him last time, it could be viable. And Brooklyn loves him. They play him the minutes. So, I mean, I think he's okay, but it's like, am I rushing him to get into my lineups? No. Like, if I have 4K left over, then I'm comfortable with using him.
Yep, I agree with you there. Jumping over to small forward, Kawhi Leonard obviously tops that list, especially Kyle Lowry. And as you brought up, they have a back-to-back coming up, and they don't play Leonard on the second nights of back-to-back. So it almost makes sense, I think, for Lowry to be ruled out today and then play the back-to-back game when Leonard's out of that one. So
right.
With Lowry off the floor, again, it's been minimal minutes, but I think Leonard's averaging like 1.4 fantasy points per minute. It was something in that range. Just 1.33 fantasy points per minute. That's what it is. So I mean, yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting for sure. I think spending up for him is going to be very popular tonight.
Yeah, especially because when you brought it up on the podcast, small forward on FanDuel is so ugly. I mean, it got a little better because now we can play Kelly Oubre. We could play Jeff Green with Dwight Howard ruled out. So, like, that's a bonus that we have. And, we could also spend down to Evan Turner. But, like, other than that, there are no spend-up options. It's Kawhi and it's Josh Richardson at small forward. And then it's the rest of everyone else. Gallinari's okay. I think he's okay. I think he's probably a little too cheap now that he's playing. I mean, it was just an illness. We know what we're going to get out of him. So, I do like Gallinari. But small forward's ugly, man. So, I mean, if you want to just cut avoid the like lower tier and just spend up for Kawhi, I think that's a viable way to approach this slate.
We pointed out on the podcast that Justice Winslow's point guard eligible. He's only small forward eligible on FanDuel, but how much point guarding do you see him playing tonight with both Johnson and Dragic ruled out? I
mean, I was saying it, like, he runs the team. A lot of the times when Dragic's off the floor, Tyler Johnson's off the floor, he plays point forward. He's going to defend down low. He's not like he's going to be defending a team's. I mean, maybe he actually does defend Russell here or Dinwiddie, depending on who's scoring. Mm-hmm. But he does bring the ball up. We're going to see the offense run through Winslow. So, yeah, he's only 4.5K on DraftKings. I'm not saying that this is someone that has massive upside because he really hasn't flashed it, but he's a guy who's always been a good rebounder for his size, and he's a good passer. So if we just also get a few more points, kind of like we did earlier this month against Atlanta, where he gave us nearly a triple-double, I mean, that's probably the ceiling that we can get out of him. So 4.5K, I think it's worth taking a shot on him. He's going to see 30. He has to see 30 minutes because they don't really have many ball handlers. Like, Ellington's not going to handle the ball. So it's Dwayne Wade and it's Justice Winslow handling the ball. So I think one of the two are going to be on the floor at all times.
For sure. With Washington, did you mention Oubre while I was checking some status notes here? I think Oubre's someone that's very much in play starting. But you mentioned Jeff Green also on the podcast that you like. He's only $4,200 on FanDuel. No Dwight Howard. They can play smaller ball. Him and Markieff maybe coming off the bench together. What do you think about Jeff Green?
I mean, I think it makes sense that they do play small here because I think it's going to be a game for the Clippers playing small too. I mean, no Dwight, so they don't really need to run Gortat on the floor. They can just plug in Harrell at center. And if you plug in Harrell, well, Harrell's 6'7". Now Washington doesn't need to go Mahimi or Thomas Bryant. They can just play Jeff Green or Otto Porter at center and just run a super small lineup, super fast. Again, why this game is going to be crazy high paced. Yeah, I think Jeff Green's a great play. I think Kelly Oubre is a great play. I think Green's going to be I think Oubre is one of the chalkier plays of the slate now because he's starting ahead of Markieff. But I think Jeff Green's a really nice contrarian pivot. I don't think he's going to be too low owned, but I think 4.2K for a guy who's gone over 20 a handful of times, 20 fantasy points a handful of times is really viable. He's going to get an increase in literally everything, usage, minutes. He averages 0.88 fantasy points per minute without Dwight Howard. So that's pretty consistent to start. So I like Jeff Green. I like Oubre. I think Oubre is more cash game viable, and Jeff Green's more tournament a tournament pivot.
Yeah, for sure. Just again, refreshing a lot of these Kyle Lowry status updates. He's currently on the floor testing his ankle out, running drills. There's pictures of him on the floor running around. So still waiting on it. So we're going to have to probably wait. Things are calling him a true game time decision, which just terrifies me to think that at like 7:02 we're going to figure out that news. And I mean, you already mentioned yourself that you're playing probably Van Vliet anyways. Just anyways, but yeah, it's interesting as we're getting down. This is the NBA though. This is kind of what we have to learn to live with. Over at power forward, really again, it's the two guys over in with the Clippers. It's Harris and Harrell. I think they're both viable, especially with Howard ruled out tonight. Harris obviously more expensive over on FanDuel, $8,200. Harrell, $7,500. Both of them have really high ceilings. We saw Harrell go for almost 60 fantasy points last night against Atlanta, which is just insane, considering where he's come over the last year and a half.
Right.
Are you okay with playing both of them?
Yes, and I think I actually think the contrarian move is to play Tobias Harris, as crazy as that sounds, because everyone's chasing the upside in Harrell. I mean, I don't think Tobias Harris really has that upside. We don't see it. We just see a really consistent floor, like one of the more consistent floors in fantasy right now. Tobias Harris, like 35 to like 45 every single night. So I think he's the contrarian play because he's more expensive. I think Harrell is close to a must play though in tournaments now that Dwight Howard's ruled out. Like there's nobody on Washington that's going to be able to contain him. Especially given the fact that he's playing 30 plus minutes and he's so like ferocious. I want to like when he's off on like, I don't know how else to describe it. Like when he's on the floor, he's just like 130%. Like he's just wound up like an Energizer bunny at all times. So I'm having a hard time not fitting him into tournament lineups. I think he's cash viable too. I mean, I don't love the price on FanDuel. I don't love it. But from what we saw last night, there is upside even at that price tag. So
he had 5 steals last night, which really...
Yeah. And he's a good defender. Like, he's small, but he's a good defender. I mean, that's what he came out of Louisville known for. And he blocked a lot of shots at Louisville. So, yeah. I mean, I think Harrell is a really strong play, all formats. And Tobias Harris is a contrarian play. Probably cash games. I'm more likely to play him in a cash game, but I don't hate him in the tournament either.
Harrell in the early meeting against Washington this year only played 16 minutes in that game, but had 25 fantasy points to show you the upside there. If he plays 30 plus again tonight, he may be looking at another 50 fantasy point game. Wedged between those two guys on FanDuel is Aaron Gordon. What do you think about him? Again, probably going to go up against Siakam or Ibaka. But again, probably going to go overlooked, and he's been another consistent player who is in that mid-30s to mid-40s in fantasy scoring pretty much on a nightly basis.
I mean, it's something we mentioned on the podcast earlier that he scored 31 actual points and 37 DraftKings points last time out. That's an aberration, man. I mean, he's not going to grab one rebound. He's a really good rebounder. There's a reason why he's averaging 7+ per game on the year. So I got to think he's starting to come around offensively. 3 of his last 4 games, he's been over 50% from the floor and 17 actual points. And we've seen the upside 39 or 37 or more in 3 of those last 4. So I really like Aaron Gordon. I think he's going to be chalky as hell on DraftKings at that price tag. I know a lot of people are going to go down to Harrell, but 6.9K is we've seen Aaron Gordon consistently in the high 7s, low 8s before from last year and this year. So I think 6.9K is a price tag I really want to take advantage of. He doesn't need to do a lot to get there. He doesn't. He doesn't need to. He does enough peripherally to get there. So we don't need him to score us 30 actual points again for him to hit it to get value for us.
Yeah, I agree with you there. If we're going down, again, now we talk about trying to choose between the 2 Clippers forwards. How are you deciding between Siakam and Ibaka?
So last year, Valanciunas only played like 19 minutes a game against the Magic. So that right there, again, we did this earlier in the year. I forget who it was. I think it was against Boston, where we looked at Valanciunas and he played like 13 minutes a game against them last year. They just play Ibaka at the center. They don't need Valanciunas in these matchups. Vukovic, I know he's not like smaller and athletic, but he's like too good for Valanciunas defensively. He's just too skilled. Vukovic is one of the best like individually sound players on the low block. And I think that's why they just need Ibaka, whether the size advantage is there or not. So we're going to see Ibaka's already announced a starter. We're going to see a ton of minutes. I think Siakam's a little safer, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Ibaka's not safe either because they're both very viable for cash games. I just am leaning Siakam because there's no OG Anunoby and there's no CJ Miles. So we're going to get extra minutes at small forward for Siakam too when Kawhi comes off the floor. So I like Siakam in cash. I like Ibaka in cash. I'm probably leaning towards Ibaka's ceiling in tournaments.
Okay.
But I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and be like, don't play Siakam in tournaments either. So
I hear you.
You could play either of them.
For me, I think the only other viable, probably power forward is Al-Farouq Aminu. Knox coming off the bench. We don't know James Johnson's minutes situation. Markieff coming off the bench. I don't think Vonleh's in a good matchup having to go against Aminu. And obviously anybody below them is, GBP only. So I think Aminu is probably my last sort of back and forth cash, but probably GBP play, $5,500 on FanDuel.
Yeah, he's always in the discussion for like cash games. I mean, he just plays a ton of minutes and he produces on the glass. And if we get the steals, which is something that he's good at doing, blocks too, he's a good defender. I mean, he's just safe. I do think Vonleh has some intrigue starting. I don't love it, but 3.9K, we saw him play 34 minutes last game, and he's someone who we've seen on numerous occasions this year go for 10 plus rebounds, couple blocks, couple steals. Obviously, I don't like it starting next to Cantor because the rebounds, Cantor is a vacuum on the glass, so I think that could maybe hinder his upside, but 3.9K isn't the worst price for a guy who's probably going to play minutes matching up with just running up and down the floor. By the way, revenge game.
You beat me to it. You beat me to it.
Revenge narrative.
I was about to spit out the revenge narrative propaganda. You spent a cup of coffee.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. Portland. Massachusetts native, though, by the way. Born in Haverhill, Mass. Shout out Haverhill, Mass. Noah Vonleh. You don't know who that is, but I do.
Absolutely do.
Merrimack Valley. Sure that. Anyways, any other power forwards? Or just ready to move to center?
Nah, ready to go.
Alrighty. Going on the center position here, I guess Cantor's definitely now in play as long as we assume he's playing minutes. I think Cantor's starting also puts Nurkic in play because I think those two are gonna be the guys that match up. But at the top, we have Vucevic and we have Whiteside. I think a lot of people are going to go to Vucevic here, or they're going to go down to Cantor, which I think puts Whiteside against the Nets, which is one of our rules, centers against Nets. I know Whiteside hasn't really paid off price tag of late, but in that matchup against the Nets last week, he had 35 fantasy points in 22 minutes. So It's not like he wasn't on his way to crush value. They just didn't put him on the floor long enough for it to happen. I think that happens tonight with Jared Allen being active because they didn't have...
Kyle Lowry will start.
Well, there you go. There you have it. I don't have to fix my lineups because I didn't have VanVleet in it anyways, but yeah, all right, cool. Good on them. Lowry's in the play. So I think Whiteside's still in play as sort of I think you may go overlooked with people paying up for Vucevic or down to Cantor, like I said. What do you think about that?
I mean, we follow this. This is like, people follow 10 Commandments. Our 10 Commandment number 1 is centers against Brooklyn. So I obviously have no issues with that at all. So get Whiteside into your lineups, please. Don't worry about his last performance. It was foul trouble. Yes, that could happen, obviously, but Jared Allen isn't really individually skilled offensively for him to get into foul trouble. So I'm not necessarily worried about that here.
I mean, there really isn't a safer center, I guess, maybe at that price point, especially not on the slate, obviously, than Vucevic.
Yeah. 8.3K is too hard to ignore everything that he's doing. And like we said, he has a significant size advantage over Ibaka now.
Yeah.
And if they bring, let's say Ibaka gets in foul trouble or he's getting abused, and they bring Valanciunas, he's just too skilled for him. Also. So like there's mismatches everywhere for Vuk. I'm even willing to pay the 9.5K. He's gone over 50 in 3 straight games. The offense just runs through him. Like he's probably their best passer.
Yeah.
So
it's true.
I don't have any problem using him in any format tonight.
He does already have a triple-double this year, so.
And he was 1 assist shy last game.
Yeah,
1 assist shy last game too.
I agree with you there. Cantor starting, have to play him.
You don't have to, but it's hard to ignore someone who has 20/20 upside at 6.3K.
Yeah, and you just look at the games where he's played at least 30 minutes, and he's gone for 40 to 50, even a 60-point game against Chicago. So the upside is tremendous. Before we jump off with the Lowry news, how does that impact you? Does it change any of your interest in Leonard? Are you now on Lowry maybe against Orlando? Like, what do you think about it?
I don't think it impacts Kawhi at all. I mean, Kawhi's been who he is literally every game this year. It's like 50. We know we're getting like 50 from him as long as he plays a full game. There would have probably been a little more upside, but I think he's still safe. I think Van Vliet, there's still a path because they're still lacking wing depth. So I think Van Vliet is still fine at his price tag. I still think we can get there. 5X is obviously less upside. It takes me off DeLon Wright completely. No more DeLon Wright. It doesn't affect Siakam or Ibaka for me. Danny Green, probably if you had any interest in Danny Green, it's probably gone. I mean, maybe not because, again, no wing depth. Danny Green's going to play over 30 minutes. So, like, you could theoretically do it. There would have been more intrigue if Lowry was out. It's just interesting. It's interesting to see him playing, pushing it. Maybe he pushes it too hard, and they're like, all right, well, we have another game tomorrow, and Van Vliet still plays. So
maybe tomorrow we don't get Lowry or Leonard, and
that would be quite interesting.
Uber Raptor value there. All right, that does wrap up today's live stream. James and I will be in the subscriber chat leading up the roster lock. Fortunately, not really waiting on any other injury news. And so it's really, if something breaks, it's going to be something that we weren't expecting to happen. So be on the lookout for that. Other than that, James, you have the lineups out or coming out?
Coming out right now.
James, lineups will be out as soon as we get off air. So good luck, everybody, and we'll see you in subscriber chat.
Later, guys.